Can you take me higher? Sound check. 1, 2.
We made it.
Podcast number 1.
Podcast number 1, 13 years later.
We're a little late on the podcast train if you think about it.
Does the fly fishing industry really need another podcast? Thank you for joining today, and hopefully for more after this. But yeah, just want to give a quick intro on who I am and why I'm talking to you today. And I started Flylords 13 years ago in my college dorm room as a freshman at the University of the South, Swanee. And yeah, I never really envisioned it to evolve like this and kind of grow into a global media brand. It's been a dream to be able to make this a job, really.
And just chiming in from the second seat, my name's Wills Donaldson. I have been with Flylords for 7 years now. I came on staff my junior year of college doing some freelance writing and was fortunate enough to cross paths with Jared and eventually move out to Colorado, 5 years now. 5 years ago, and have been along for the ride ever since. So super stoked to be talking with you guys, stoked to be next to our main man here and sharing some insight, some humor, and some silly little anecdotes that we have loaded up for y'all today.
Awesome. Well, I think let's get into, we were going to start maybe with news, right? Or
a couple tidbits of news here.
Some gear as well. So, basically, as often as we do these, we want to give you guys updates on new products that are coming out. In recent times, there's two products that have kind of launched in the last month that I think are worth talking about. One is the Scott GT series. No, they didn't build this rod to go catch GTs with. It's basically an evolution of the Scott G series, which is a very notorious, legendary, fantastic rod from Scott, which is based in Montrose. We love those guys.
Yep.
The GT series is supposed to be lighter, a little more of a athletic feel to the rod. We haven't fished it yet, so we can't tell you how good it is. It does make me want to ask, how often are you supposed to buy a new fly rod?
Dude, that's a great question. I mean, it depends on I'm in the situation where, it depends on what my wife says. I get to finally wield that card. But, yeah, I think it depends on how many situations you're putting yourself into, right? Like, I always loved when I was going on a trip abroad or going to fish, like, saltwater for the first time, you get to kind of justify picking out that new rod if you can afford it. But, I mean, dude, how many rods do you have in your quiver at this point?
You're going to throw me under the bus like that already?
Ballpark.
I have too many rods in my quiver.
But you also, that's the thing, is you have explored kind of all over the world fly fishing. So my answer to that would be like, however many is justified.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a dumb answer.
I mean, realistically, though, I think for somebody who's been fishing for a while, having, an arsenal of 5 or 6 rods, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
You don't need 4 or 5 weights.
Right.
Unless you have buddies that you're fishing with and you want to give them rods, or if you're guiding, or, if you're an absolute gear-aholic and you want a 5 weight for, your own nymphing and for dry fly fishing and for, all these different, technical fishing.
I think it's cool because take Scott as an example. Again, not sponsored. We just really like what Jim and that crew does. They're so like handmade and thoughtful products. It's not just like another water bottle, the latest trend. It's like this really thought out thing. So I like when I see people who like collect them. Like there's those high-end reels that people like to collect, and people like to have all of the Scott rods and stuff like that because they're kind of mementos to like moments in the industry's history. Again, it's if you can afford it, which is a very small group of people.
If you're upgrading your rod, and you want something nicer, I think this is worth taken a look at. But there's a lot of other brands out there that are great. There's one other product that caught my eye recently. I was scrolling Instagram and it popped up. And I did want to share a little video. We could play it on the video portion here. Bugalo fly fishing. So I think it launched like a week ago.
Yeah.
And this guy basically has a patent pending idea, and it's this cylindrical fly box that kind of like retracts.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I feel like in the fly fishing world we live in, you don't see a lot of innovation often. So it's always cool to see people coming up with creative ideas, you know, going from concept all the way to a finished product. And this one caught my eye. And I think this could be something that it could end up being something, you know, that's a great little Christmas present or something that you could add to the arsenal.
I think that's a great call out. It's super cool to see. I mean, how many times have you seen a new fly box and it's a box? Maybe it has a magnet or something like that, but this is a really cool like step in a different direction. It's a good call out.
Yeah. So I think those were kind of two products that caught my eye. You know, we're going to do our best to try and give you guys a little quick summary on new stuff that's coming out in our industry, and, you know, obviously try to be as non-biased as we can about what we think about them. Awesome. Let's get into some news.
The news corner.
Welcome to the news corner. So for news today, guys, we've got some spicy stuff coming at you. There's a few topics that me and Wills want to talk about with you. There's somebody that we are going to be calling in to talk about one of these stories in particular. But yeah, the stories we want to highlight today are zebra mussels in the Colorado River. Gotta hate those. We've got Bahamas legislation that is potentially going to make DIY fishing only possible with Bahamian guides.
Yeah. So not DIY fishing.
So literally not DIY fishing. Love to hear that. And then the last thing we were going to hit on is, why am I blanking here, Wills?
The White River.
The White River.
In Arkansas.
And them putting regulations on taking fish out of that river, harvesting fish, which probably not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So let's dive into them. I think the first one we should talk about is the zebra mussels. That's something that is having it's hurting us here. It's our local fishery.
Yep.
And when we see those headlines, we pucker up a little bit.
It's scary, man. I live 5 minutes from the Colorado River. That's like the main spot that I fish.
Yeah. I've been contemplating whether or not to say this line. I'm gonna go with it. I think it's funny. We might get canceled on our first podcast episode, but zebra mussels are basically the herpes of a river. Once they show up, you're not gonna get rid of them. They spread fast, and they can destroy a whole ecosystem. That might be
a relationship with an ecosystem. Jokes aside, though, I mean, it's kind of a valid comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that's been spreading across the West. You've seen it in Montana. They're taking a lot of initiatives against that. Less so in like the northern states, but sort of our southwestern and just western, central western areas, like it's becoming a serious problem.
Yeah.
And it's scary to see that it's kind of now within our own backyard.
Do you know what makes them so dangerous?
So from what I've read, and again, I'm an amateur on the subject, is that they do, like, the big issue concerning ecosystem is two things. It's that they over indulge in local food sources, algae, plant life, and kind of leave riparian zones sort of barren, which of course affects insect life really drastically. And without insects, which we have an abundance of here in Colorado, you don't have trout, and it's sort of a slippery slope from there. And then additionally, their waste has a super high acidity. So when they're consuming and then defecate, I don't know, if mollusks defecate, however they get rid of their waste, it's raising the pH levels, or it's messing up the pH levels of our river.
Interesting. And guys, I think we made this clear when we started this. Like, we don't want to be experts at really anything. So feel free to call us out in comments if you have corrections or thoughts. No egos here. But yeah, I think, from what I read, the zebra mussels obviously are introduced species. They're invasive, so they're not, I don't think they're they're definitely not native to any of the rivers or waters out west here.
Right.
They were introduced in the Great Lakes way back in the day, I think from some ships.
Some freighters.
And they're the size of your pinky nail. Sorry, they're very small, and they reproduce extremely, extremely fast. So I think one female zebra mussel can produce something like 1 million eggs,
which is insane.
And that's in, I think, one cycle, one birthing cycle, and they purify the water. So you were right, and when people say oh, zebra mussels purify the water, you're probably like, oh, that's a good thing.
Right.
They're gonna clean the water for us, but they purify everything. So they like you said, they completely take away the algae and the food sources for the bug life that's in the river, and the bug life is what supports the fish life. And once they get in there, we were joking about the STDs earlier, but I'm pretty sure it's impossible to get rid of these.
Yeah, I know there's 2 things that have been done in the past by CPW, because they've been in the lower Colorado, and what I read was that they're kind of sifting up now towards our neck of the woods. And there's 2 things you can do. Is you can drain the body of water, which obviously in lakes, sure, that's possible, but here you can't drain the Colorado River. It's literally impossible. And it would destroy the entire ecosystem. Or you can use a toxic chemical called molluscide, which is essentially just like a poison to mollusks that you can introduce to the river system, which seems to be somewhat effective, but then that also destroys a lot of other different types of mollusks in the river, and introducing chemicals to a river is just never good. So to your point, it's a very slippery slope once this thing gets started.
Long story short, clean your boat and clean your waders and your boots, especially felt sole boots, when you're moving from one body of water to another. Something as small as a droplet of water can infect an entire ecosystem. So for us, it might be too late here, but for those of you who are, traveling to different fisheries, especially if you're in the Midwest and you're going out west, please make sure you're taking that into consideration. Let's move on to the Bahamas, the Bahama drama. This story we published on Flylords a week or so back, and it got a lot of people talking.
It's an interesting one, man.
I got a few texts being like, dude, that's bullshit. So here's what we know so far, and we don't have super precise details on this, but what we know is that there's some government legislation that's trying to be pushed through in the Bahamas, and there's a few things that this legislation is trying to accomplish. Ideally, they're trying to protect their fishery. They're trying to protect the tourism economy there, which is highly supported by anglers, especially fly anglers. So there's a few things that are worth noting. They want to charge people a daily kind of fee to go fish the waters. That's one thing that I do think makes sense. And then within that legislation is also a line that says, we propose that anyone who's coming to DIY fish in the Bahamas needs to be with a licensed Bahamian guide. And if they're caught without a guide, the punishments could be as much as confiscating your gear, fines of something like $5,000, and potentially 3 months in a Bahamian prison.
You don't want to do that.
Could you imagine being like a 20-year-old kid graduating college and like you didn't read this article, like you're not on social media and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to go fish in the Bahamas. And like next thing you know, like your one fly rod is confiscated. You lost all your money and you're in a Bahamian jail for 3 months.
I couldn't imagine anything scarier.
So yeah, obviously like there's things about regulating fisheries, charging for using a resource, which I do sometimes agree with, because a lot of that money, when you look at fishing licenses and things like that, does go back to preserving these resources, which we know need more help than they ever have.
Yeah.
So I am in favor of things like that. I mean, we see it in the US all the time. Anytime someone like a wealthy landowner, and we'll actually get into this here shortly when we talk about the Blue River, but anytime a wealthy landowner, buys a big stretch of water or, and basically tells the public that they can't go fish it, it's never a good feeling. And as long as anglers are respecting the resource, and they're not killing tons of fish or spreading zebra mussels into
the ocean,
I think it's bullshit for them to say that in order to go fish these waters you need to go with a license. And a lot of people can't afford that. So
no, I think it ultimately would hurt them in the long run. I think they would see, because how many times have you been to the Bahamas? A few, right?
Yeah.
I've gone, that was my first ever saltwater experience. My brother and I got a cheap hotel, and we went and DIY fished in Andros for a week. And I can tell you we spent a lot of money there on food, on drinks, where we stayed, rental car, like all that stuff. And that money is all going back into their local economy. And I get where that's coming from, because like to guide down there, you need to be Bahamian. And I think that's a good policy. I think that protects their locals and ensures jobs. And I think that's great. I think the issue that we're facing here is that people are taking advantage of the DIY opportunity, and they're getting on boats, or they're bringing boats, or they're borrowing a boat from someone who owns a house there that they're renting, or, they're just opening up more opportunities from foreign homeowners to fish these waters and taking away quote unquote opportunities from these guides. So I get where the frustration lies, and I do think there's probably a median that needs to be reached. But to your point, Jared, like, I think a play like this would ultimately hurt that Bahamian economy, because you would see a lot less people showing up to fish, to spend money, to buy food, to buy hotels. Like, it's just, I think it's a self-destructive policy, personally.
Yeah, agreed. If anybody out there likes this idea, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
So maybe add something in the comments. You might get roasted, or you could shoot us a message.
Yeah.
Up next in news that rubs us the wrong way. Well, I think we're going to hopefully have some positive news. I feel like there's so much doom and gloom news in fly fishing, because it's always like this global warming and this drought and this flood and this. So sorry, this week is kind of all negative, but I do think they're important topics for you guys to know about and, I don't know, get a little fired up about. I think we're a small, passionate group of people, and it's important for us to, come together when there's big issues. But yeah, this is an interesting one. So the Blue River, which is, an hour and a half from here, outside of Silverthorne Vale area, it has a notorious stretch of river that is owned by billionaire Paul Tudor Jones. Jamie, make sure that's correct. And he notoriously has had this stretch of water called nicknamed Jurassic Park. And every year I see photos come out of there of 31, 32, 33, 34-inch absolute pellet-fed abominations. I mean, they're cool. And honestly, like I've had friends that have fished it. I've never fished it, and they're like, yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
But in recent times, recently, Paul Tudor Jones made a deal with the government, and they basically traded some land and some property. And part of the goal of this whole arrangement was to create more public fishing in this section of the Blue River, which had a ton of weird rules and regulations about how you could fish it and you know, when you fished it. After all that was done, it was promised to the local community that this would be beneficial to, you know, local anglers. And now there's the local conservation group that is working to try to have a number of permitted boats per day allowed on the water. And once again, this is like going back to the Bahamas thing and going back to like telling anglers that they can't fish somewhere unless they like do something. None of us ever like to hear that. So it's definitely stirring up, you know, local community members. And the other thing that is also like needs to be brought up in this story is the way that they manage that water is by feeding these trout pellets.
They have like automatic underwater pellet feeders.
Are they underwater?
I'm pretty sure.
That's crazy.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
But anyway, like that's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And so Ben McCormick's a local fly shop owner of Cutthroat Anglers. We're going to call him in here shortly. And he's kind of going to give us his spiel on what's going on behind the scenes, what he's kind of fighting for. And it's a super interesting story. There was a headline that went kind of viral that I feel like I had to read. Let me find it real quick. Blue River, a billionaire, a land swap, gold medal fishing, dinosaur trout, and a permit proposal anglers are calling a bait and switch in Colorado.
That's a loaded headline.
Isn't that like, I mean,
that's intense.
That's a pretty exciting headline. So Ben will kind of unwrap that with us, but I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Oh, dude, it's so tricky when you get into private versus public, messing with local ecology. I feel like the big thing that Ben's so passionately fighting for, which you and I have been friends with Ben for quite some time now, and he's someone who, like, he finds a hill and he will die on that hill. Yeah. Foreshadowing for a future segment.
Whoa.
But the thing that I think he's probably most passionate about is just changing the feed cycle or the food cycle that exists within this ecosystem. He gave a really good example in an article that you can find on flylordsmag.com, where he said it's very similar to baiting wild game like bear or deer, which sure is an accepted practice in some areas, but ultimately it leads to an ecological shift in how these animals behave. And furthermore, it kind of messes up their dynamic with the environment and creates a dependency on this type of food and some of the chemicals, the growth hormones that are found in this food, and really just kind of messes up the natural way that the river functions. So I'm very much with Ben on that, in that, like, when you mess with the natural way things are done, it can have some really negative side effects. That being said, of course, we're anglers, we fish in tailwaters. You know, there are multiple TU restoration projects that are changing the way rivers are shaped and formed. Like, not all alteration is bad, but I do think in this example, we're kind of looking at a nasty bit of business that maybe came from a not so great motive.
Yeah. Usually when you hear billionaires and trout streams in the same
not a great
headline, it's usually not a positive thing. But yeah, hopefully this gets worked out. Excited to hear more from Ben. Our last story comes from the White River in Arkansas, home to some of the biggest brown trout in the world, ladies and gentlemen. their two main hatcheries in the last year faced some challenges. One was some water quality issues, and one was due to some flooding. Both of them are producing hatchery fish at a much lower rate than what they should be. So ultimately, they're now limiting the amount of fish that are harvestable. I know in some main sections, you're not allowed to take any fish out of the water.
Yeah.
And in some sections, it's down to one or maybe two fish in some sections that you can take out and harvest. Obviously, as a fly angler, I'm in favor of regulations like this because we're 99% of the time catch and release.
Totally.
Do I think anglers in healthy fisheries that can sustain it, should they be able to harvest fish at times? Yes. But I do think that it's great to see when fisheries need it, they're able to create regulations and push them through efficiently. Because I do know a lot of fisheries, ours included, when you try to push regulations like that through, it causes some uproar and it ends up getting pushed back right away. So
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Why is it that if a hatchery is having problems, they would need to introduce this sort of regulation? Do you know?
I have no idea. Wait, what's the question? Why?
So, like, if these hatcheries are having issues, why would Fish and Game need to monitor harvest?
Because I think these fisheries rely on hatchery fish, especially when they know fish are going to be harvested on a regular basis.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think that fishery in particular relies on consistent stocking of fish.
Yeah. I've definitely seen, like, it's funny, we have a reservoir here that has a really, I'm not going to name it because it's got a famous population of lake trout in it, but every year it's stocked with rainbow trout, and it's less for the anglers that like tourists that come and catch a stocked rainbow, and it's more for the fish that actually come up and feed on these fish. Like, it's a really good source of protein after a long winter during ice off. And I'm wondering if it's probably the same situation on the white. Yeah. If, like, those giant, disgustingly large brown trout are eating those stockers.
That's a good point.
It's crazy to think about.
Something we want to do is bring in experts, basically to every podcast if we can, to talk about topics that are educational or, in this case, breaking down the Blue River situation by a local fly shop owner and someone who's really passionate about that river. He just called me 3 times. Benjamin.
There he is.
So we're recording this. This is our first podcast that we're doing. Everyone kept saying the fly fishing industry needs another podcast, and we were like, all right, we can do it, guys. I know that there's not enough opinions out there, so we can come in and give you guys more opinions if you want them. But part of the goal is every week or by week, we're still trying to figure
probably out every month at this point, but yeah,
once a year we're gonna bring on a guest to talk about something important. We hit a little bit on the Blue River situation, and we wanted to bring you on to kind of get like your take on the whole situation. I know we could probably talk for an hour on it. But I'd say like maybe give us the spark notes on like what's going on, your perspective on it. I did want to lead in with this very catchy headline that I'm sure has been sent to you a million times. Blue River, a billionaire, a land swap, gold medal fishing, dinosaur trout, and a permit proposal anglers are calling a bait and switch in Colorado. What does that title mean to you?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I'd probably break it into 3 different big things that are going on right now. I think everyone's aware of what happened with the land swap. But following up with the land swap, Friends of the Lower Blue, which is a nonprofit group, is proposing a new river management plan. And this river management plan states that the lower blue has some serious health issues, and they're trying to propose a permit system for accessing the lower blue by boat between the months of June and October. And a lot of what they're attributing the need for this permit system is due to angling pressure and fish mishandling. So you have the proposed permit system, the float down there, and then you have what I've been more loud about, which is the fish feeding and the lack of regulation around stocking in the state of Colorado. So Colorado currently has no regulations for private landowners. There's no species regulation. There's no reporting. People can put whatever they want to into the river. So I think those are my three big things to highlight for you guys that people should be aware of.
And as a local shop owner, the permit system doesn't sit right to you because you feel like there should be an unlimited amount of boats there, or do you just feel like that's not going to solve anything and we need to get to the root of the cause here?
I think it sets precedent for a private landowner to permit a public waterway. So to me, that's the big glaring issue. And I think that's what I hope the public fights back against is, like, if they're able to do this on the lower blue, private landowners are going to be able to do it on other waterways that should be accessible to the public. But, as we know with Colorado water law, flow fishing is pretty vague right now. So I just think it sets a dangerous precedent for us to go down. I like floating down there, but I usually don't plan ahead. I think one of the beauties is, waking up in the morning and saying, I'm going to go float the lower blue because it's right there. It's one of our most accessible floats. So I think it really takes away a lot of public access because a lot of people don't plan that far ahead.
Yeah, and as a shop owner, you guys could probably, like, between all the shops, you'd probably monopolize those permits, and then, the crew that just wants to go fish themselves and not hire a guide for the day probably would be the ones getting kind of screwed out, depending on how that whole permit system even worked.
Yeah, and as you guys know, as it stands now, there is no commercial outfitting down there.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So this would allow commercial outfitting or no?
No, they're trying to permit recreational usage.
Okay.
Yeah, which is just taking public water away from the American people, in short.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not a good precedent. So what can we do, and what can the listeners do to potentially, have a louder voice maybe against something like this getting pushed through?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need more powerful stakeholders involved. So, if you're a member of an organization like Trout Unlimited, Blue River Watershed Group, Colorado Public Lands, I think reaching out to those organizations and encouraging that they take a stance against this is one step. Also, to pull this off, the ranch is going to need the BLM Kremling involved. They're going to need Forest Service involved, and they're going to need Colorado Parks and Wildlife involved. So those are three organizations that they're going to have to get on board to pull this off, because those organizations all either control a parcel of land that would be used to access the river. So they would be the ones jointly granting the permits. And then Parks and Wildlife would be the organization that enforces violating the violations, I guess. So I think if anyone knows individuals within those organizations, or has the time to reach out to them and express that they're against this, those are the people that are going to have the power to either say yes or no.
Do you want the ranch right now to just stop feeding the fish? Do you think that would help?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, that was step one. I think, if you stop feeding the fish, it kind of takes care of the excessively large trout that are in there unnaturally without even having to address the stocking of those trout, because those fish will not survive without feeding.
Right.
So I think step one is we need to stop feeding in waterways of the state in general, but I think the Blue River is the most extreme example. I really would like to see the feeding stop.
What's one of the issues that feeding is primarily causing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think a great comparison to draw on is the statute against feeding big game in Colorado. So you're not allowed to feed elk or deer, and the scientific reasoning behind that is the congregation of animals, for one. So it congregates a lot of animals in a small area unnaturally, which does a couple of things. The first thing is it leads to disease transmission. The second thing is it takes away their predatory instincts. So if they're all hanging out and they're eating, they become less aware of predators that might be hunting them. I think the other thing it does is it pushes out the wild population of fish. And also, with that disease transmission, it can spread the disease. So gill lice is a great example of a hatchery-created disease. Biologists believe it's hatchery-created. Well, if these stocked fish are being put in there and they have gill lice, theoretically they could transmit that gill lice to the wild species that are in there navigating, right? Not necessarily brown trout, because they've been shown to be immune to gill lice, but the other rainbow trout and other species can pick up that gill lice. In the middle blue, the kokanee salmon are the great example, because we really need kokanee in the blue badly, because they're a great source of nutrients for the entire ecosystem. But every time they put them in, they keep getting gill lice. And the biggest theory on that is they're moving through stocked and fed water upstream around Pass Creek Ranch.
Okay. Is there any group kind of leading the charge to make this change?
No. The answer is no. I've been pretty loud. I've talked to members of Trout Unlimited, and I sent a long email to their board, and they are actively debating. I actually spoke with someone from Trout Unlimited yesterday, and they're trying to figure out what's the messaging, should they be getting involved, and how to package this at a statewide level. It seems to be something most people want to avoid discussing.
What's the other side of the coin that they're afraid to address? Is it the billionaire? Is it the anglers that love catching pellet-fed mutants? What's kind of the hurdle with them supporting an issue like this that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to create uncomfortable disruption. Certainly. There are many ranches out there around the state that feed their fish. They also have guide services. There are guide services that pretty much specialize in guiding stocked pellet-fed water. So, by doing this, they're going to be hurting those individuals. They're going to be hurting those guide services, and it's going to be an uncomfortable disruption for, I would say, those landowners and those organizations or those guide services.
I'm assuming the first few years after would be the worst, because you'd probably get the die off of the bigger fish. Maybe there's some more wild fish that could reproduce and thrive. Ideally, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. So that's part of the issue, right? Is that like shock of a business that maybe relies on the stock fish hurting maybe 6 to 12 months after, for something that might be beneficial
in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of that, I would tell those same people that, maybe like I would reach out to biologists from other states in the Rocky Mountains, because I know for a fact that there are scientists and there are people from other states in the Rockies that are looking at us saying, what are you guys doing? Like if Colorado doesn't get on board to develop regulation and fight to reestablish wild fisheries, we are going to fall behind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does Montana allow pellet feeding? Do you know?
Montana?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, and I think Wyoming, I'm not sure on Wyoming's stance on pellet feeding, but I know Wyoming's a state that has similar water access law to us, which is fairly unique. And, you know, I know that Wyoming is saying this about us. They're like, well, you can't keep allowing this. You need to be working for wild fisheries, and you're going to fall behind all of us if you don't.
Mm-hmm. Scary.
Definitely scary.
A state that's so associated with prolific wild trout fisheries.
Yeah. Falling
into sort of a inescapable pit. I feel like once we dig this hole too deep, there's a point of no return.
And there are different types of fisheries, right? If we're talking about a pond, like, or something that dries out and doesn't access other waterways, I'm not proposing that we just say we're going to stop stocking and stop doing these things everywhere. But, you know, the Blue River, for example, specifically is a tributary to the Upper Colorado, which is probably our last and most valuable prolific fishery in the state. So, you know, we're talking about very wild places that, you know, need to be protected.
Yeah. Well, Ben, thank you so much for raising awareness about this. It's great to see, you know, a local business owner who makes his living, you know, through educating and getting people out on the water, take such a important stance. And, you know, it makes sense to me, to support this mission. And, you know, we'll look forward to seeing how we can continue to support this fight. I'm assuming it's not going to be overnight.
No, I don't think so, but I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity.
Ben,
see you guys.
Where can people, real quick before you depart, where can people find you? Where can people learn more about what's going on here and figure out what they can do to fight against it?
Yeah.
So your cell number, you want to put your cell number on the screen?
I'm happy to share my email. You know, ben@fishcolorado.com is my email. We have a bit of literature on our blog, but I would encourage people to go to Friends of the Lower Blue Rivers website and read the river management plan.
And you're against the Friends of the Lower Blue Rivers management plan right now. You're not on board with their plan to basically just do the permitting and not worry about the stocking or the feeding.
Correct. It just is leaving out the elephants in the room.
Yeah.
The problems are due solely to angling pressure and fish handling. I think there are glaring problems that are very quickly solvable that don't involve the public.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks so much, man.
All right.
Talk
later.
soon.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Do we want to do Hill to Die On? Is that next?
Let's do Hill to Die On because I'm going to embarrass myself during trivia.
All right. You want to go first?
Yeah.
Right.
So we are going to try to each week come to y'all with a new segment. If you guys really like these segments, like, please be vocal about it in the comments or let us know, and we'll, you know, keep running the same ones or try new stuff out. But this first segment that we're going to do is called Hill to Die On. So this is essentially, we each have a take or an opinion that may be a little bit controversial that we want to put out there, and it is our hill that we are willing to die on. I'll go first. I know you're going to disagree with this, so I'm looking forward to hearing your rebuttal. In my opinion, and I'm about to get flamed too. In my opinion, I think a really good streamer eat is way cooler / more fun than a really good dry fly eat.
Yeah, that's false.
Here's my reasoning. I think dry fly fishing is sick. And you're kind of like, you're a much better dry fly fisherman than I am. like keeping the drift and mending it, I definitely am less proficient in it than I would like to admit. But I think watching a nose come up and eating your fly and then going tight is really sick. I think the feeling of having your fly out there in the water, you're feeling it being retrieved, you're feeling the current working against it, you can't really see it, and then having that, like, feeling something smash it, and then feeling that hard tug and strip setting it, and just that heart palpitation that comes with that gets me going way more than like when I can watch it happen, because I kind of can anticipate it, whereas this is just like full blast of adrenaline into my body, and then the fight's on. You're fighting with a heavier rod, a heavier line. You're probably maybe on a boat, maybe on the shore, whatever, but like I feel like it's just a more violent interaction, and that's like what gets me going. But I would love to hear your take on the opposite.
It's a great hill to die on, and I see where you're coming from. And it's something that I love about fly fishing, you know, even for, especially for trout. But I love it because you can have someone who gets so much excitement out of that, and then you can have someone who gets so much excitement out of a dry fly, which is more of who I am. I love how you knew that. But yeah, for me, like, I'm such a visual angler. I like stalking fish. I like looking for the rising heads. I like putting a delicate cast in there. It doesn't have to be the biggest dry fly. It can be something really small on 6X tippet. I like watching the nose come up and eating. I like how slow it is. I like how technical it is. I like setting the hook and feeling that bend in the rod. It doesn't need to be aggressive. And that's like, for me, the quintessential eat and moment for me as a trout angler. So I wouldn't die on that hill, but I think that's a fine hill to die on.
I will say, I think a big part of that too is we fish together 1,000 times. I think you have way more patience than I do when it comes to that stuff. Like, we've been dry fly fishing together, whether it's like backyard or across the world. And like, if I see heads, I'm chucking it in there. I'm putting it there, where I've seen you like stalk fish for a good like 30 minutes and then make one cast and bring a fish in. So I give that credit to you where it's due.
It's funny, like, I'm not patient about many things in my life, but stick me on like an alpine lake somewhere, and I'll walk around that lake for 2 hours before I send one cast.
It's so impressive, dude. It's genuinely like, it's something I admire about you and your fishing style. It's I strive to be that patient, but yeah, I think that's also a big part of why my opinion is what it is.
Well, I respect that, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of streamer eats out of you in Fly Shop Tours Season 4 Midwest.
Ooh, the first teaser officially here. Oh, I'm excited for that, man.
It's gonna
be fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be cool.
My hill to die on. I see Jackson getting excited over here because he really wants to hear this.
I'm stoked.
My hill to die on is Euro nymphers catch the most fish. And I don't think it's cool. It's definitely not sexy. I refuse to do it. I've done it a few times. I refuse to do it. There's something that, like, when my arm gets like tired, and it's not like fun. It's almost like not even fishing at times. It's catching.
Yeah.
And when you get to a spot on the river and you see someone Euro nymphing a hole, you're like, I'm not even gonna go in there. He's gonna pull every fish out of that hole. But that's a hill I will die on.
It's effective, but it's not cool.
No, the hill is, I think, Euro nymphers. The fact that that's a word is hilarious. But Euro nymphers catch the most fish. That's the hill I'll die on.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's some people who might disagree with that, but
I like that, dude. I like that. I think if I may insert my own anecdote, as someone who all cards on the table now, coming out of the Euro nymphing closet, does enjoy doing it from time to time. Here's my take. And the funniest part about Euro nymphing is, if you ever have a conversation with someone about it, the first thing they're going to do is try to justify it to you, which I think is indicative of the whole issue itself or conversation, controversy itself. I like tying those flies. That's probably the main reason I do it. I think they're fun, easy, quick, cool looking flies to tie. So I need to justify tying all those flies. I have boxes full of them. And I like the feeling of having contact with the bottom. So like I like it way more than watching a bobber.
Yeah.
It's that feel thing, right? The streamer thing is the same thing. That being said, I think it's a total bastardization of fly fishing. And like if someone were to ask me what the like styles of fly fishing are, I would say streamers, dry flies, and just nymphing. But like Euro nymphing is like the ugly stepchild of fly fishing, and I fully acknowledge that and think that anyone who says like it's as much fly fishing as dry fly fishing is a liar and wrong. So that's
And you're not allowed on our boat with us.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great one.
Yeah.
I think that's a
so
really good one.
I'll stick with that. Those are our hills to die on for this episode. If you guys have a hill to die on, feel free to leave it in the comments.
Pitch it.
Next segment here is I wanted to touch on ask Flylords your questions. Leave them in, DM them to us, leave them in the comments, write
email plug too. You can send them to us at writein@theflylords.com.
There we go.
Yep.
Send us some fan mail, put a couple $100 bills in there.
Please.
Maybe we'll answer it.
Bribes are accepted.
For this first one, I asked my kind of relatives, family and friends. My cousin did chime in and say, I'm getting into fly fishing. Do I buy a 5-weight rod or a 6-weight rod? And I think this is a great question, and it's a common one that comes up. And here's how I would answer that question.
Yep.
First of all, you can't go wrong between a 5 and a 6-weight rod. If you're going to buy a rod for a trout river, for fly fishing for trout, dry flies, nymphing, small streamers, go with a 5-weight rod. It's the most classic 9-foot 5-weight. It's where people should start. You can feel the rod bending better than a 6-weight rod. That being said, if you want to fish for bass, and I grew up in a place like New Jersey where half the time I fished for largemouth bass in local ponds and snuck onto golf courses and things like that.
Oh yeah.
And the other half of the time I was fishing for trout. And I do think if you want something a little more versatile for warm water and freshwater, or just warm water for bass, and it's your first rod, go with a 6-weight. And I still think it's totally great. And the beauty of fly fishing is if you start with a 5-weight, you have an excuse to buy another rod. We started it there today, but it's a sport where like you want to buy
Dude, it gets addicting.
Yeah. And that's half the fun is like when you get into something, like thinking about all the you're going to buy. But that's my answer. I don't know if you want to add anything in on that.
Dude, I think you kind of hit that home. Like the 5-weight is the do-it-all rod. I do think like for beginners working with a 5-weight, it's going to help your casting a lot. You're going to get less, especially if you're throwing like bigger flies, or if you want to focus on dry flies and things like that. It's going to help your technique a lot more than a 6-weight, which you kind of have to muscle a tiny bit more depending on, how fast the rod is that you buy. And we can get into that whole deal later. But, yeah, dude, I think the 5-weight is sort of the standard, but to your point, for bigger, harder fighting fish, if that's going to be what you go after normally, 6-weight's a great option. I think very well put.
Awesome. Up next, we have hot takes. Is it me or is it getting hot in here?
Ooh! We should use that as a segment opener every time.
I have a hot take that has kind of been bugging me recently. We might lose half our followers listening to this right now. The 10 people listening, shout out, thanks, Mom.
Thanks.
She's probably going to fall off because I know she absolutely hates this company. But I have a hot take about the industry. I'll kick it off, and if you have one after, you can share it.
Sure.
I think that Sims fishing is making relatively the same quality products that they have been, but everybody's hating on them because they got acquired by a big company. They're not paying for this. Do I like Sims? Yes.
Yeah. Same.
Do I like a lot of the other brands that are making great stuff? Yes.
Yep.
This is non-bias, but every single week I see people absolutely shredding them apart.
Thrashing, dude.
And listen, I think there's some fair points to that. I do think that they had some lapses in customer service. I do think that their headquarters got pretty much taken over by this corporate company,
PE,
which it doesn't feel good for small industry vibes.
No.
That being said, they're still really the only made in USA waders. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure
right.
they're the only ones still making them here in the US. You know, their gear, the jacket that I ordered today, like it still feels like good stuff. It still feels like they're innovating. Someone on our team did say that his waders might have fallen apart a little bit quicker since then. So if I'm wrong, feel free to throw it out in the comments, but that's my hot take.
That's a hot one.
It's spicy, I know, but I think they're still making quality products. Do I think they need to figure out how to redo their image and make sure they're supporting local shops? And making sure that like the heart and soul of what Sims was is still there in the future.
Yeah.
That still needs to be written. But I did want to throw that out there because it's something that I see on a weekly basis.
Dude, that's a good one. What I would contribute to that is I think the conversation around the quality of the product that they're putting out is getting skewed out of spite. And I think your take is, I think you're right. We have been wearing Sims waders. I've been wearing them for almost a decade. You probably longer. Sometimes I would have issues with them. Like 8 to 9 years ago, I would have issues with them. Holes would emerge, seams would break, like boots would, the lining on them would like fall apart. That's just the nature of waders, especially if you use them a lot. Yeah,
every wader.
The product, they're getting
Pants
abused.
weren't made to go into water and be waterproof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're climbing over barbed wire fences. You're
climbing over barbed wire fences. Where are you going?
Not trespassing. Just maybe some leftover barbed wire fences on like BLM.
Are you breaking into the Jurassic Park Billionaires property?
Oh god, dude, I can hear the gunshots going off in the background already. But like they're getting abused. You're going through thorns. You're climbing over logs, sticks. Like this stuff happens, and I have seen cases on like Instagram and stuff where people are like, "I just bought these. They're already leaking." But again, that's kind of always been the case.
Yeah,
we've been to the factory. We've seen the people making them. There's gonna be human error. In any product that's ever made, especially one that's not like mass produced by a machine line. That's the defense.
Yeah.
Where I do think some of it's justified is, like you mentioned, I think the customer service has gone downhill a little bit. It does happen when brands grow. It's happened with a lot of brands that we're very familiar with, and I think is always going to be the trend. Obviously, as a company gets bigger, they can't pay attention to every single person, and I don't think that's a good thing. I'm not justifying that. And then additionally, I do think the whole fly shop interactions, some of that's been not great to hear. I think Sims has an opportunity to fix it. They like fully candid, putting it out there, like they support our fly shop tour series because they want to support fly shops through us. So like that good nature, that act of, charity and goodwill towards fly shops, like that's not lost on us, but I can see where some people have been frustrated with the brand, and I think it's justified.
Yeah. Listen, I might bite my tongue, and in 6 months from now, I might be like, holy shit, they've gone downhill, but I have yet to see it. I
wear Sims waders every day.
I do see people coming out of like the cobwebs being like, check out these boots. And they're like, I just bought them. And you could tell these have been worn like literally 500 times.
Yeah.
They're doing it because everyone's teaming up on them right now. Not that I'm necessarily rooting for the big PE company to make a bunch of money. Like I think they could have handled the transition better, but it's a hot take I wanted to take.
Yeah.
Anything? You got anything?
I do. That was pretty spicy. I might need to drink some milk after that one. I think we can keep going.
Awesome.
That was good. That was a good one.
We're at an hour. I have one last little thing that I wanted to add, which is kind of like a DIY tip
Love
that
that.
I think might be nice to like wrap everything up. Wind knots. Wind knots. You love them. You hate them.
You probably don't love them.
You probably don't know.
You
'em.
probably just hate them.
You probably don't even know who they are. Wind knots, if you're getting wind knots in your line, you're taking too many false casts and you're casting too fast. Slow down. Whenever I'm out with somebody who's somewhat of a beginner, they're learning, they don't have as much experience, I always see them taking too many false casts. You really only need 2, 3, maybe 4 false casts.
Yeah.
If you're
going really far.
If you're going really far. But I see people casting the same amount of line 6, 7, 8 times. You're gonna get wind knots. And the thing about wind knots is, especially if you're getting them in your lighter tippet towards the end of your leader or on added tippet, you're going to break off fish.
Yep.
The second you get a wind knot in your tippet or your leader, the strength of that monofilament or fluorocarbon, it diminishes drastically. So if you see it there and you're kind of like joking around and you're like, I don't know, whatever, it. Cut it.
Very Larry
Take
David
your
of you.
time, cut it. Because when you hook into that big fish, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And you're going to be pissed. Unless it's really high in your butt section, and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, wind knots, slow down your casting, less false casts. And if you do get a wind knot, they're inevitable. Cut it, retie it. You'll thank me later.
It's a great tip.
Anything else we want to add to wrap this puppy up? I think we were planning on it being 30 minutes.
Yeah,
So
I'm fine with an hour.
it's an hour. We want to hear from you guys. What,
Yeah.
like, please tell us if dragged on, or you didn't like our jokes, or you want me to put a sock in it. Like, we want to hear from you guys. Like, the goal here is to produce something that you're excited to throw on, once every 2 weeks, once a week.
Yeah, we just want to hang out with you guys. Like, we have some opinions that we think are cool. We have some opinions that are dumb, and we want to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah. And we're not always going to be right. So if we say something that isn't right, call us out.
Yeah. We're going to try to research it to the best of our abilities, but
we're not Tom
perfect.
Rosenbauer. We're just a couple dudes that want to hang out.
yeah, I like to fish.
Come for the fish, stay for the hang.